Cloud computing for a small business. How to have a best-in-class cloud. Cloud computing may be a new technology, but experts say the best tactics to establish a world-class small business cloud process are anchored in old-school vendor due diligence practices. If you own a small business and are thinking about switching to the cloud, make sure you screen potential vendors cautiously. Your network is only as good as the providers you work with. Good data management, security protocols, and service are critical. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How you doing today? I hope you are doing fantastic, and if you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka, and let's roll. Today I want to talk to you about cloud computing for a small business and how to have a best-in-class cloud. Number one, choose cloud service providers wisely. Reputation matters, folks. Especially in today's global marketplace, reputation matters. When choosing a provider, you want to pay attention to reputation. There are tangible assets that will affect how secure and reliable a provider's service is. Top-notch cloud service providers have multiple data centers that are geographically dispersed. It is very important to insist on that geographic dispersion. This provides defense against natural disasters and geopolitical turmoil. Data centers should also be close to internet backbone connections. So be sure, and as you engage in the conversation, that you use vendors with a high security, privacy, and regulatory compliance standards. You can ask them those questions during the due diligence process. Those providers that want to win your business should have clear data classification policies and procedures. Most services are on demand and pay as you go. So vendors should be able to accommodate variable demand and seasonality. So you want to think about the long-term relationship. When you reach out to a vendor, make sure that they are open to establishing a long-term relationship with your small business. You want to choose, preferably, a company that is fiscally healthy and likely to stay in business. It is also critical to have migration support, but you also want to avoid vendor lock-in, which is a situation where proprietary technology is incompatible with other systems and therefore makes it hard to change vendors. You don't want to be locked in right now. So the bottom line here in this section here is that you want to choose cloud service providers wisely. You want a company that is focused on the long term and wants to establish a long-term relationship with your company. A provider that doesn't have a lock-in feature in their services, and a provider that is also flexible. Flexibility is important because as you grow, as you want to scale your operations, you want to have a provider that will support you along the way and not just charge you a humongous fee at the start. No, you want a company that will focus on security, privacy, and regulatory compliance, but also charge you in a flexible manner so that you can pay as you go. The second thing you want to do after choosing cloud service providers wisely is to negotiate the terms of your service level agreement, your SLA. Now, a cloud service level agreement is a contract. You can call it blueprint, you can call it a legal agreement, but it is a contract, blueprint, and warranty all rolled into one. So you take care to define key terms and clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of all parties. Your agreement should spell out at a minimum, this is a minimum, where your data is located. Who owns the data? What data controls are in place? How your data is protected in transit? How your data is protected once it's in the cloud? Who in the service provider's organization has access to different types of data? What password policies and authentication procedures will be used? How accounts are provisioned and deprovisioned? All those questions and many more are critical, folks. If you own a business and you want to transfer to the cloud, you want to ask the provider those questions. Those questions, as you probably noticed, revolve around location, data ownership, authentication, security, safety. Your SLA should identify performance measures so you can monitor service. Again, why do you want to monitor service? Because, as I said earlier, you want to establish a long-term relationship. So to be able to keep the relationship going, you got to have a way to track whether it is performing or not. So typical indicators include the capacity, so the number of users who can access the cloud at any given time, and the response rate for processing customer transactions. This is essential, especially if you are engaged in online selling, in e-commerce, and you're processing several transactions. You have a web store, you have an online store, and you want to process transactions. So you need to know the response time for processing customer transactions. You also want to have some info around what log information will be provided and whether it will be in a format that you can import into operational analysis software. Your agreement should spell out the consequences and penalties. It should also address exit planning. Exit planning, folks. Remember earlier I was talking about lock-in. You don't want vendor lock-in. So you need to think about exit planning. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're also having a conversation here around cloud computing for small business, how to have a best-in-class cloud. I spoke to you about how to choose a provider wisely, how to negotiate the terms of your service level agreement. Let's talk now about optimizing your own security. Before entering into a relationship with a cloud service provider, you want to evaluate your current information technology security controls and vulnerabilities. You want to go through your IT processes. You want to review also the vendor's security and data protection policies. In other words, you want those two to match. You want your own IT security controls and vulnerabilities to match with the vendor's security and data protection policies. So ideally, the vendor's security and data protection policies should offer increased safety, increased securities to your vulnerabilities. So you'll want to look for suppliers with certifications like ISO 27001, ISO 27017, DoD IL4, HIPAA, and the UK's Cyber Essentials. Now, you have to understand that a lot of big providers, from Oracle to SAP to SAP to Salesforce to Microsoft CRM, they have all these accreditations. Most cloud service providers have more cybersecurity expertise and better controls than traditional IT department. So monitoring cloud infrastructure is their full-time job, so the success of their service depends on keeping it secure. Data breaches are much more commonly caused by human error than by problems with cloud infrastructure. Keep in mind, though, that no system is flawless. So we want to discuss how and when the cloud service provider will report failures, outages, or security breaches, how they will report them to you or how you will report them. You'll report those failures to them. So this forces you to have ultimately a conversation about what? About a risk mitigation plan. You want to have a risk mitigation plan and measures to prevent downtime. Downtime, which can be very costly. Again, if I go back to the original, to the example I took earlier about someone having an online store, if somebody is processing or needs to process hundreds, if not thousands of transactions every hour, and there is downtime, then there is a lot of money lost right there, a lot of revenue lost, especially during busy seasons, the holiday seasons, for example. The fourth way to have a best-in-class cloud is to protect your data. You want to make sure your data is classified by sensitivity with access restricted accordingly. Tiers of data should be handled differently based on how much risk unauthorized disclosure will prevent to the company and affected users. This is especially important nowadays because we have people working from home, employees are working from home, authorities are encouraging an environment of remote working. So you want to pay attention to that. You want to pay attention to tiers of data, especially when it comes to data in the cloud. You want to know how and where your data is backed up, and most important, who can access it. So in the unlikely event of a disaster, you want to have a plan for how your data will be recovered and restored. So having those conversations beforehand can help you, because you're able to align your internal security and data protection protocols with those of the cloud computing, with the cloud providers' policies. Number 5, monitor your cloud services rigorously. It is critical to monitor your cloud services cautiously and rigorously. The reason why you want to do this is that most problems are much easier to solve if caught early. If you're able to look into your systems and identify problems early, the problems are a lot easier to manage. Unusual spikes in activity can alert you to security threats, for example. You can figure out what's really going on. Is this legit? Is this fake? Do you have some kind of malware in your systems? So then you can trigger some kind of internal investigations or report the data to the provider. Similarly, if you have dips in activity, it could also be the result of a glitch and result in lost sales. I was speaking earlier about downtime. So if you have dip in sales, for example, you're losing money. You're losing money every second. So any anomalies should be investigated promptly. So most cloud vendors offer lots of service and support. So as you are going around and looking for the cloud providers or the cloud vendors to choose, you need to look at those elements. One thing I also want to mention is that having a cloud provider is great, but you need to train your employees. You need to train your staff. You need to make sure the staff members are aligned with your company policies in terms of cloud. You need to teach employees how to access the data, how to manipulate the data, how to protect the data, how to be aware, how to be digitally aware. And this is an important element because spending money to upgrade your systems, making sure everything runs smoothly, and not having the staff, I would say, intellectually ready to implement your tactics and strategies is not an effective approach in the long run. So you want to have the systems in place, but you also want to have the training in place, the workshops in place, the ongoing education in place, so that your staff members are aware of the cloud, what it entails, how it can protect the data, and how it can increase productivity overall. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I was just talking to you about cloud computing for small business, how to have a best-in-class cloud. I'm about to wrap up today's conversation. If you enjoy the show so far and you love the content's clarity and quality, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you are informed in real time whenever we drop a new show. And we release this kind of shows not necessarily on business tech every day, but we do release similar shows every now and then. But overall, the channel releases shows every single day, rain or shine. Comment below, share, like, and you can also, if you want to leave a comment, a question, we'll be very happy to answer you. Here is a recap of today's conversation. How to have a best-in-class cloud. Choose cloud service providers wisely. Negotiate the terms of your service level agreements. Optimize your security. Protect your data. Monitor your cloud services rigorously. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay more or less.